What's up everyone, this is Coaster Visuals, and we're back with another countdown in my series of ranking my top favorite coasters in every country I've visited. So up next is Spain, and Spain is one of my personal favorite countries for roller coasters. This country has a lot of very highly regarded roller coasters at the top, and really depending on who you ask, the top 3 could be totally different. Now I've visited most of the major parks in Spain, but not all of them, but I honestly don't think anything at the parks I haven't visited would crack this list, so I feel like this really covers all the great rides in this country. So, with that being said, let's start the list. Alright, so starting off at number 10, we have one of only 2 full-circuit Intamin inverted coasters. This is Tornado at Parque Atracciones de Madrid. And this is a weird ride in many ways, and you'll notice it before you even board the coaster. The station looks more like a transfer track than a real station for a coaster, and if you're tall, you're going to want to keep your feet up before you enter the lift hill, because if not, you might smack your feet on the first staircase that's under the lift. So this coaster isn't rough at all, but it definitely has a little bit of jank to it, more so than a B&M invert. I think it gives it a little more character. After cresting the lift hill, you go through an odd straight section and then head down the curving first drop into 2 forceful vertical loops. There's also a corkscrew and a helix on this ride and some bank turns that really let you feel the speed. This coaster ranks pretty close to Shadows of Arkham, the Batman clone at Parque Warner, and that one is probably a little more forceful start to finish, but I would give Tornado the slight edge just for its overall uniqueness. Next up at number 9, we have one of the more iconic coasters in Spain. This is Dragon Con. So this B&M looper kind of feels like the Incredible Hulk or Kumba Islands of Adventure. The inversions on this are all really fun, especially the Zero G roll, which is extremely whippy. It really throws you through it. There's 2 forceful vertical loops, and there's also a straight drop that even gives some airtime. This coaster has a beautiful setting, and it really stands out for its overall power and intensity from start to finish. Alright, next up we have Tarantula at Parque Atracciones de Madrid. So this coaster is really shocking, and it just looks like a Mauer spinner coaster. Like, you know, they all kind of have the standard layout, but this one is totally different. It has huge drops, and some that really carve through the terrain and go like through tunnels and stuff. And if you take these drops backwards, it's really thrilling, and the spinning on this is out of control. So, I actually think this is a lot better than some other highly regarded spinning coasters, like Winja's, and I also think it's better than Tornado at Bakken. This one spins and is very out of control, but it also remains very comfortable, unlike that ride. So, I really think this is kind of the weird spinning coaster in Europe that people should be hyping up, because it's a great experience and definitely one of my favorites at the park and in Spain overall. Number 7 is Superman La Atraccione de Acero. So this is my favorite B&M foilless coaster, and it really stands out for offering actual airtime, which differentiates it from the other B&M loopers. So yes, the inversions do feel pretty standard, but they are fun. The vertical loop is forceful, the dive loop is forceful, the Zero G roll is good. But the camelback in the middle of the ride really makes this stand out above the rest, because you get actual sustained floater airtime over it. The Helix finale is really cool too. There's some strong positive Gs, and it's broken up by an S hill that also gives some floater air. Not as good as the first hill, but still really good. This ride also has a really nice themed plaza and a queue line, and overall just a really nice presence in the park. Definitely one of my favorite B&Ms overall. So next up at number 6 is a coaster I actually really didn't like on my first trip to the park in 2023. But after a few more rides on this coaster this year, I've really started just to appreciate how crazy it is. This is Abismo, and it's the only Mauer extended sky loop. The hang time at the top of the lift is just wicked, and what makes this special is that it has a lot more elements than the other models of this ride type, including some intense overbank turns and a great airtime hill in the middle. There's also a really cool step down, and the whole experience will just have you asking what the hell happened when you get to the end of it. The vertical lift that turns into the inversion is just so crazy, and overall this is an experience like no other. Definitely a great ride. Next up, we have a ride that's incredibly short, but what makes it stand out is its sheer power. This is Red Force, and it's the tallest coaster in all of Europe, and a front row ride on this is just so special. The launch is amazing, and the speed you feel at the end of it is just crazy. You also kind of feel the launch start to bounce as you get to the end, which makes it feel very out of control and gives it some character in my opinion. It may not be as forceful as some of the hydraulic launches on former rides like King Dakar or Top Thrill Dragster, but really at this point this is kind of the closest you can get to a ride like that, and it still packs a huge punch. The whole coaster is just breathtaking, and it has my favorite drop of any coaster that's over 300 feet. Falling at a 90-degree angle for so long like this is just insane, and my stomach drops like crazy every ride. There's also a cool step up at the end, which looks very unassuming, but it gives surprisingly strong airtime and makes for a great ending. This is an unforgettable coaster. So next up at number 4, we have not one, but 2 different wooden coasters. These are Stampedia, a pair of CCI wooden coasters, and I'm a huge fan of this manufacturer, and these rides almost feel like a mini Ghost Rider. I love the Western theming, and despite having some negative changes made to this ride, which I'll get into, it still manages to be a really great experience, which I think just proves how strong these CCI layouts are. These lateral focused layouts with unbanked turns that pin you to the side and just feel so out of control. There's a lot of different ejector airtime moments in the first half of this ride, including a really good double down, and like I said, it's really the star of the show is the laterals. And there's some cool turns that almost feel like they're banking outwards to the side, which is really unique. So, while this ride is really great in its current form, I see that it has some untapped potential. So right now, this coaster is probably an 8.5 out of 10. But in a perfect world, I really think it could be a 10 out of 10. Give it PTC trains, remove the trims from the drops, rip the Titan track off, and put Gravity Group pre-cut track. But regardless though, it's still a fun experience in its current form, and it does have some nice forces and quirks to the ride. Definitely a unique coaster that's not to be missed at PortAventura. Alright, so next up at number 3 is Furious Baco. And if you couldn't tell by now, I really love unique coasters. And I also love stuff that feels really out of control and shakes like crazy. And Furious Baco does that very well. This takes a very simple layout and turns it into one of the most wild experiences you could have. The hydraulic launch on this goes uphill, and it's just absolutely insane. It's the best launch at PortAventura, and without fail, every single ride, my stomach would drop at the end of this launch track. And then right after that, you get some crazy airtime as you go down this dip into a ravine. It's really wild. So here's my hot take with this ride. In my honest opinion, if you want the best experience on this ride, you need to be on an outside seat. Left side is the best, and I love the back, especially because you get some really good airtime back there going down that dip. The problem with the middle seats on this ride is they don't shake as much. So it just kind of feels like, some of the rides I had in this, I started to think, it kind of just feels like forceless speed in the middle seats. But on the outside seats, you're really able to feel the full power and the out of controlness of this ride, and it just makes it much more exciting in my opinion. There's also an insane heartline roll towards the end, which is really the element that you want to be on the left side of the train for. If you keep your arms up during this element, you may even hit some twigs below you. This coaster is just one of a kind, and it's one of the few rides that can get my adrenaline pumping this much. Definitely don't miss this at PortAventura. It's fantastic. Alright, next up at number 2, we have what is really the objective best ride in Spain. And really the only reason this isn't my number 1 favorite is because I'm a marathon rider. I love riding coasters over and over again, and my favorite coasters are the ones that are easy to just hop back and ride over and over again. Unfortunately, this coaster always seems to have a crazy long line, probably due to its low capacity with only running 2 trains most of the time, and that it only has 3 cars. It also has a really long pre-show, so even if you buy a fast pass, it makes a real marathon impossible. But if it wasn't for that, and if this was a list of objective best coasters in Spain, it would easily be number 1. But since this is a list of my favorites, I'm going to put it at number 2. With that being said, this coaster is as great as a modern coaster could be. The most comfortable trains of any modern ride, the best zero-G roll of all time. The whole ride is insane, and it feels like Velocicoaster's second half twice. No meandering on this ride, just balls to the wall thrills the whole time, with really no break. I also want to mention that the top hat on this really rocks. Despite being trimmed, the short trains really make it work, and the drop still gives powerful airtime while adding to the anticipation. I also love the laterals you get on the sustained turns, Plus, the airtime hill after the top hat gives some seriously strong ejector. It makes me feel like I'm gonna fall out. The only other minor criticism I have of this ride is it feels pretty short, but honestly, if it was any longer, I think its pacing would start to be hurt. So it's a trade-off. Like I said, this coaster is definitely the objective best in Spain. I just wish that there was a way to, like, bypass the pre-show and just marathon it, like, 20 times in a row. I think they did, like, a VIP experience where you could do that, and if I was around, man, I would want to do that. But with that being said, this ride is fantastic, and it's easily going to be most people's favorites in Spain, and in some regards, I think it is mine. But with that being said, the top 3 in this country is just so strong that, like, you know, in a way, these all could be number 1. Like, whichever one I'm riding in the moment could be my number 1 favorite. So, with that being said, like, you know, it's so hard to pick what my favorite one is. So, I love all 3 of these rides. And with that being said, let's get to the number 1 spot. Alright, guys, but before we get to the number 1 spot, there's a coaster we need to talk about, and that's Shambhala. This is one of the most well-renowned hypercoasters out there, with huge cabinets filled with floater airtime. But unfortunately, I just can't put it on the list. I really should love this ride, and I really, really want to, but there's a big problem with this coaster that completely ruins the experience for me, and I just can't ignore it. Shambhala is subject to local regulations, which require the B&M clamshells to go down 4 clicks in order to dispatch the train. This is a policy not found on any other B&M Hyper, including the other one in Europe with Silver Star, which I find very comfortable, so it is a Shambhala-specific issue. As a taller rider with big legs, this destroys the ride experience for me. With 4 clicks, it really feels like the coaster is trying to cut off my circulation, and instead of having fun over the airtime hills, it felt like the coaster is trying to saw my legs off. It's just not a comfortable experience for me, and it does make me a little sad, because if this coaster had the same rules as every other B&M Hyper, I think it would slot in at number 6 on this list. And I've also heard some people say that this rule hasn't always been in place, so I really hope one day they can change it back so taller riders like myself can have a more comfortable experience. Alright guys, so now we're at the number 1 spot. And as much as I adore Batman, I just could not put Stuntfall at the top spot. The giant inverted boomerang. Where do I start with this? This ride is just the most fascinating coaster type to watch. So many moving parts, the way the cable pulls the train to the top is so cool, and this is just one hell of a machine. The vertical spikes on this give me the most adrenaline of any coaster element in Spain by far, and they're insanely addicting, and I just want to experience them over and over again. You get pulled up slow back up the first spike, and before you know it, you'll be sliding all the way forward in your seat. Ride this coaster with some room between your legs and the restraint for the most insane experience. You'll thank me later. The drop on this feels like one of the vertical drops on those vertical-facing drop towers. But this one has a lot more oomph to it, and you'll feel it in your stomach way more than other vertical drops like the ones in Siren's Curse, the Tilt Coaster at Cedar Point, or Falcon's Fury, the vertical drop tower at Busch Gardens Tampa. The drop gives a great freefall sensation the whole way down, and the giant cobra roll on this is really whippy and fast. This is the only part of the ride you really need to learn how to ride through to prevent any headbanging. If you just lean far forward as much as possible on the exit and entrance, then you'll be good. The vertical loop is really forceful. Along with this entire ride, you will feel the positive G's through the whole thing, and the ride is just so intense it can almost be draining for some people. I can ride it all day, and I have done that, but I can see why a lot of enthusiasts think that. Once you reach the halfway point, you'll start up the second spike, and the anticipation really starts to build up again, especially knowing the second half is even crazier than the first half. The backwards freefall is amazing, and in the front row it feels especially huge as you get the longest drop up there. The vertical loop backwards is brutal, but I love it. The positive G's feel insane, and the loop is huge, so taking it backwards is just such a surreal element. This is another part of the ride that really makes it addicting for me. The backwards cobra roll is really cool, and it gives a lot of great whip when you're in the front row descending it. And then you come to a stop, and this is actually one of the best parts of the ride. The stop on the vertical spikes is insane, and you will fly forward into your seat. And if you have some room, you seriously are going to feel like you're going to fall out. It's amazing. I feel like I'm always dangling out of my seat during this whole part, and it's just so much fun. And at the end of the ride, I always come up laughing. I think this coaster runs much better than Aftershock, which is the other giant inverted boomerang I've ridden that's still in operation. It's smoother and it runs more intense, and it doesn't have the lap seatbelt like that ride. I really love the spikes. I also think they're by far the most thrilling spikes of any ride. Getting pulled up slowly and sliding forward really adds to the thrill. The intensity, the re-rideability, the fact the line usually isn't too long so I can ride this coaster over and over again, and the adrenaline the spikes give me, and the nostalgia of riding this ride type back at one of my other favorite parks, Magic Mountain, are all the reasons this is my favorite coaster in Spain. And if you love intense rides, you should definitely put this on your list. This is a must ride, and I can't recommend it enough. Alright guys, so that's the end of another countdown video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one because I really enjoyed ranking all of these rides, and it's a lot of fun for me to talk about them. I plan to make these videos a regular part of the channel, and the goal is to continue uploading them weekly. So stay tuned for more, and if you like this list, please like the video, and also if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out and I appreciate it so much. With that being said, let me know what you agree with me here on, what do you think I'm totally wrong about, and what do you think I'm spot on with? And yeah, let me know what your favorite coasters are in Spain. So, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for the next countdown very soon here on Coaster Visuals.